We choose plays that have a good story, a good narrative, some interesting characters, and stories that appeal to us. So I guess that's what theater is for us and what good theater is.
Melting Pot, a global podcast series hosted by Pyle, connects guests who have inspiring stories and reaches out to a multicultural audience over 52 countries. Guests are diverse, such as celebrities, entrepreneurs, travelers, and many more who've had a turning point in their lives and moved over to a holistic lifestyle. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, social media. Hi, everyone. Today I am in conversation with Charlotte Knowles. Charlotte is the managing director of the Singapore Repertory Theatre. Through her vast experience as a theatre practitioner, she's creating a very diverse art scene in Singapore that contributes to the already very, very vibrant and culturally rich country of Singapore. She's also using arts as a very powerful tool for good, and she's doing this through educational programs and community initiatives that support the underprivileged children and family. Thank you so much for joining me today, Charlotte.
Pleasure.
So, Charlotte, let's just talk a little bit about your background before we start talking about theatre and all the rest of it. You're not a native of Singapore.
No, I'm not. I have been here for 22 years. I moved to Singapore in 2000, thinking I would go and set up a .com project, and we had some government funding, and it sounded like a great idea. I'd never been to Asia, so I thought, why not?
Sorry, where did you come from?
From Denmark.
From Denmark, okay.
So I'm Danish, but I had worked in the art scene before, and I met a very clever woman that, we had this conversation. Are you happy in IT? I had to close it down because we failed miserably, but that was fine because that got me where I am today. But ask the right question at the right time. Where are you happy? Where do you see yourself go? Do you want to stay in IT? And I missed being in the arts, and she introduced me to SRT, and that's 21 years ago. So I have been here for more than 21 years.
I just wanted to just generally get an idea for listeners who are not really who are keen when it comes to theatre, but they don't really understand differences between theatre or drama and storytelling. So it would be interesting to hear it from you as to what do you think are the differences and the parallels between drama and storytelling.
So to us, SRT, so Singapore Repertory Theatre that I had, we're quite a mainstream theatre company. So for us, theatre and good theatre is theatre that has a very strong story. But I guess we are storytellers, but we use theatre as the medium to tell the stories. Not necessarily that all our shows or all our productions are in a theatre, but the line between beginning, middle, and an end, some conflict resolution, some characters are being introduced, where storytelling is probably a little bit more personal. And for me, that's not necessarily theater. You can tell a story to someone you meet on the train. That's not theater, that's conversation. So I guess, again, it's a big part of who we are as a community, I guess, that the way we tell our stories and the way stories are being told. So for us, we are quite we choose plays that have a good story, a good narrative, some interesting characters, and stories that appeal to us. So I guess that's what theater is for us and what good theater is.
I wanted, today everyone is obviously very focused on the environment and what's going on around us, whether it's political or it's nature driven. How important do you think, from your point of view, is the role of an artist in today's scenario? How, in terms of the possibility through art of bringing in change, whether it's, the environment or a political change or whatever it may be, or creating awareness. How important do you think is the role of an artist?
So let me give you two answers, and I think one is wearing my producer hat. I think we do try to create a season where we both have productions that are just entertaining, they're just good stories we want to tell, but we also try and find those artistic pearls that is about something that's very relevant and current. So for instance, last summer we did a play called Lungs. Lungs. That was very much about, the green lung of Asia, but it was very much about the footprint that we leave. A young couple discussing whether it's responsible to have a child, because the footprint that the child leads to, is that fair for the environment, is fair for the world, and all that. So we did a lot around that production in terms of thought leadership around theater and sustainability. So all materials was sustainably sourced, and we took all the street vendors and we turned them into beach bags after and sold them, and we allowed people to offset the carbon footprint of going to the theater by planting mangroves. And so we did a lot of things around that. So I love also doing these. It's still about the play, but how can we do better with the things that we do and how we produce? So I think as producers, we are very conscious about, we have to do better in terms of the respect for the environment. And it's hard when you're living in a tiny island where the ecosystem of sustainability is not quite there yet. But this play was a good example of the piece that we have chosen, the conversations that we create. That's what we do. That's what theater does well, but also how we then chose to produce the play with a very respectful environment approach to it. So we try our best, and it's hard, it's expensive, we're not always skilled to know how do we do it, but we do more and more in that space and try and educate ourselves and try and think about how we can recycle more materials and all that. So I think that's, as a producer, as artist, and I guess theater especially holds a mirror up to society. So I think both as producers and artists use the voice that we have to do good, to make people think about different things in life. The next play that we're doing has a very strong theme around mental health and generations different take on mental health and parenting and letting go, and it's a very solid, it's still a solid story, but it also is very much a theme that we can see people interested in talking about, and then putting up a play that gives you a reference and start having some of the difficult conversations we need to have. So I think both as producers and obviously artists, and the way artists can use their voice and their art to stimulate dialogue, I think that's part of our job.
Interesting. So you've actually, okay, so you've mentioned your play last year called Lungs, where there was a sustainability approach to it with, the products that you sourced and then what you did after with the products, so that, it was still, the footprint was definitely there. So that's interesting. So do you think you're doing more and more of that in your, within SRT? Or you did mention that it's expensive because of, Singapore being being a small island, but do you think that there is a discussion around it, and you are thinking of different ways of trying to bring more and more sustainability into your approach?
I think we have to, but yes, we are definitely. I mean, we are trying to see how we can work with advisors in this area. We are trying to upskill ourselves to understand what we can do, because I think we've done a lot of the lower hanging fruits. I mean, trying to not use single-use plastic as much as we've done in the past. And, instead of having water bottles for all the actors, we set up the big recyclable and ask people to bring their own. And, you know, all those things, we don't print tickets anymore. It's all e-ticketing. And, you know, so we've done a lot of things that I think was the easy, lower hanging fruits. And that's just what we have to do. The long haul, the very profound change, I think, is going forward. I think it's expected of us. I think it's what we have to do as a community. We have to think differently. I mean, Singapore is a tiny island. If we don't start thinking differently about how we consume, the island will not be here in 50 or 100 years, right? So I think we simply have to. So, you know, whether it's encouraging, you know, more recycling, or, you know, whatever it can be, we're definitely trying the best we can. But again, all materials are being shipped into the little island, and so it's hard to not have that footprint, because we are the island that we are. But, and, you know, land is very expensive, so also quite often for the industry, there's no recycling of materials because we don't have a warehouse to keep it in. So there are, you know,
some challenges,
but also initiatives, and the National Art Council is very keen to hear our ideas, how we can together as an industry do better and support each other more in taking that forward. So I think it's definitely sustainability is an agenda.
So some of the you know, projects through your theatre that you are involved in for the underprivileged children and their families. If you could just mention a couple of projects that you may have recently worked on, and what, I mean, if you have any long-term, you know, projects that do involve creating awareness or helping the underprivileged through your theatre programs.
Sure. I mean, 10 years ago, we set up the Student Education Fund, where we fundraise separately. SRT is a charity, but we fundraise separately to the Student Education Fund. And every year, I mean, these are pre-pandemic numbers, but every year we would find underwriters for 3,000 to 4,000 tickets and workshops for specifically young people from less privileged backgrounds. So we work with a lot of different organizations like Touch Communities and that kind of thing. So we can offer these students both access to theater, but also working with them in different capacities on camps and all that kind of thing. So I think that's been very important for us, and I'm very happy about the number of tickets that we have been able to underwrite. We also would love to find ways of doing more. It's not just about the exposure to theater, which of course I think everyone should go to theater at least once a year, no matter your financial background, but also really seeing how we can do more programs where we're building life skills by teaching through the arts. So one of the initiatives we have is the Young Company, and it's a wonderful program where we give life skills, where you become more confident, and, you know, you find your tribe within theater and grow within theater. And that would be wonderful to do satellites around the different community centers. And so I think that's definitely, we do have these, at least once a year, we want to do a program that's more of a social giving back character, as opposed to come and buy our ticket productions. But there's always inquiries from various charities to bring their students or their seniors. I mean, for the LKY musical that we just ended the run of, we found very kind companies that underwrote a huge amount of tickets for senior citizens who couldn't afford the tickets. So that was wonderful to see as well. So it's definitely something we try and do in connection with every production.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Just moving away a little bit from, you know, general sustainability and initiatives that you're doing. I just want to understand from you, you being a woman yourself, you've been in the industry for the longest. How important has a woman's role, or how important has women's role been in theatre? And, you know, so from 20 years ago to now, have you seen a change? And what is the change that you have seen?
I mean, some of the biggest arts organizations in Singapore are actually led by women,
Okay.
which they weren't 20 years ago. So if you think about Esplanade, Yvonne Tam is doing a fantastic job as the CEO. We have the National Gallery, and there's the Pandemonium with Tracy helming that with her husband Adrian. So I think the arts has always been a bit more diverse. It's not just about gender, but in general, I feel it was never a bad thing for me being European, and I think the industry embraced that. I brought experience from elsewhere. I think in every level of society we do see more focus on a more inclusive approach to both staffing and who we see on stage and who we work with and who we hire. So I think we've always been quite open-minded in that context. So I don't think, has it changed a lot over the last 20 years? Probably, at least in the senior, the C-suite, even in the arts, I think it has changed. There weren't that many women 20 years ago. So that's wonderful. But because the women are doing a good job, not because they're women, right?
Yeah.
And I think also women are very important for us as an audience, because about 80%, 85% of our tickets are bought by women. So I think the audience base is quite gender even. But in a group of friends or in a family or in a workplace, it's probably the women who are taking the initiative for a social outing. So therefore, women are quite important for us from that perspective as well.
Singapore, when it comes to local theatre, and when it comes to local being involved in theatre in different productions, you see that it has evolved over the years.
I think more parents are allowing their children to pursue a career
Oh,
in the arts. I think it has been fantastic to see SOTA being a fully oversubscribed school, and the parents are supporting their kids. Get your education, but we also understand that it's centered around the arts. So I think that is changing, and hopefully we as an industry can do more to talk about careers and planning a career in the arts. So a lot of the work we do is also investing in actors and equipping them with skill to be teaching artists, so we can send them out to schools and do workshops with corporates and all that. So we basically, being an actor doesn't mean that you can only act on stage, but we enable them to build a really good and good career by being able to do different things.
But just as a wrap up, what is some advice through your vast experience that you can give young people who are either wanting to become theatre actors or directors or even set up small theatre production companies? Is there some advice that you would like to sort of share on this platform for them?
I think, I mean, getting involved, and whether you start volunteering or you keep knocking on doors, or whether it's sweeping the floors or whatever, get involved in as much as possible, see as much as possible. It always blows me away when I go and welcome our new batch of young actors in the young program, and I'm like, in the young company, so what have you seen recently? And they want to be actors, but they haven't really seen any theaters. I'm like, you need to see the good stuff, the bad stuff, the different genres. Go out and see and get involved and be curious and offer your services. You will never start
From the
big
top.
roles. Take, if you have to go on stage with a letter every night, that's what you do, because it's all about the network and understanding how the different companies work together and or how they produce. So I think, I mean, I'll never regret my choice to spend my career in the arts. I think it's enriching. I love the people that I meet. I think we make a difference in a society like Singapore. We give a bit more soul, and we give a lot of people wonderful experiences and a good way to spend their time. And I think that's worthwhile as a career. So I would say get involved.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Charlotte. And it was just wonderful talking to you. And I hope you recover very
Yeah, I'm so
quickly.
sorry.
No, that's
But
okay.
thanks for having me.
No, and thank you for, actually just soldiering on and going ahead with the conversation. And, it means a lot. And hope to see you sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For more weekly conversations, do listen to Melting Pot on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Follow us on YouTube and on Instagram at Podcast Melting Pot. So until the next episode, this is Payal signing off.